So yeah, well, I guess we'll just talk about what Biden and Flint and the water and some of the electoral leverage stuff. That was an interesting show you did.
Welcome, Keaton and Russell, and we are here to talk about Flint, Michigan, and anything else that comes to our minds.
Excellent. I know you have the. I see you have the right backdrop for
Yes.
this. You always put the right backdrop in.
I'm gonna keep my knee out of the frame this time.
Maybe you have really attractive knees.
Oh, that was your knee, Russell?
That video was ridiculous.
I'm glad that was your knee. I feel much less intimidated.
I was just happy to see you, Keith.
Your knee is just happy to see us. Oh, that's good.
I saw that video. I was like, motherfucker, and you were consciously trying not to be squirmy. How did you end up doing that?
Me? No, I didn't even notice it, honestly, because
I did when I watched the video afterwards. I was like, Jesus, there's like a video about my knee.
So yeah, Alan, I saw your you did a little coverage on the Flint thing, and then you did some more coverage on your electoral leverage stuff. So it'd be nice to talk a little bit about that. I think that it was interesting. It's just interesting how I feel like my evolution this whole campaign has been one from not being a Bernie or buster to being a Bernie or buster, from being pushed to that point. And then even past being pushed to that point, there was a second wave where I'm like, all right, I'm not going to be preachy about this and sort of lecture people on how to vote or how not to vote. And then, like I said, in the episode that Russell and I did, they make you into an asshole for doing that. So
Yes.
It's like, whenever you take your foot off the gas, whenever you give them an inch, they just ram it down your throat and force you into these situations. So I thought that this would be a good follow-up, because you and I did 2 talks about this topic, and now we have Russell in here on this too.
This will be fun. What I was going to say, if you didn't say it, was in your show, which I watched and enjoyed very much. You made that point that Michael Moore also made, which is, we really tried, Biden. We really were going to tell everybody in Flint to suck it up and vote for you, but you made an asshole out of all of us.
Well, I didn't make that point. I never told anybody to vote for Biden, but he did.
He made the point, and then in your show, you made it even better. You both, but you especially, Keaton, you both touched on the fact that you can only go so far with a sinking ship. You can, or whatever metaphor we want. We've got all sorts of possibilities there, but you can't keep making excuses after a while. It's like a battered spouse. And I don't remember who was talking about that. That's been in the air a lot lately.
That was me. I mean, that's a favorite Jimmy Dorism.
Yeah. And it's perfect because after a while you finally have to say, and it may be a different line for everybody, but once it's crossed, and you have to say, I'm fucking done. I'm done. And that's kind of what Michael Moore is saying about the voters in Michigan, especially in Detroit and Flint. They're going to say, you know what? If I hadn't crossed the line before now, that did it, and I'll never, ever, ever go back. And I think a lot of people, them exiting in Michigan, but anyone who looks at that and knows the story of Flint, and Flint is a international story. A lot of people know the story, and if they look at it, they'll say, nope, that's it. I'm not going any farther than that. You pushed me, and sorry, that's it.
If you, I don't know how many of your liberal Democrat friends are still talking to you, Alan. But because you crossed the Rubicon there with the Bernie or bust thing with those people.
Yeah.
But I have a few I still speak to, and about politics.
Right.
And you can really see, and it's really like talking to cult members. They don't understand how edited the media is, and as a result, they're always blindsided by events. Based on the news that they get, it's impossible for them to understand why Biden is losing Latinos in Florida because they're not given the information that would allow them to understand that. It's impossible for them to understand why Trump is improving his performance with black voters, because all they hear is Donald Trump is a racist and Democrats are great, and Democrats, they do their identity politics virtue signaling. And every article that they read is about Trump's latest offense against people of color. But you know what? In a way, it's not their fault, because the media really edits the information that they get, and they're going on that information. In another way, it is their fault, because this is the age of the internet. You really don't need to limit yourself to those narratives. But based on the information that they get, of course they don't understand it. But in another sense, if you step back for a second, okay, just look at the facts. You could make the argument that the man you have just nominated for president has done more damage to the black community than any living politician on earth.
You could.
So if you understand that, and you're not being constantly fed this Kool-Aid, this forgetfulness Kool-Aid. No, his record. I was just talking to a liberal Democrat who called Biden's record on crime a tired argument. And, these are the same people who will talk to you about white privilege. I don't know what could be more of a privileged position than to call the mass incarceration of 2 generations of black men a tired argument. And this is where it's really condescending, and this is where what really shows you how little they actually think of people of color. Yeah. Do you really think they don't notice this? Do you really believe that they don't notice that you just nominated the author of mass incarceration? I mean, sure, you have your CBC stooges who are going to allow you to maintain the illusion that the black community is cool with Joe Biden, but no, they're not. I mean, some are, but a lot of them are not.
Even the older ones. Even the older ones aren't. The ones that voted for him on Super Tuesday, even, they're saying, yeah, we still got to vote for him, but I don't think anybody really likes him right now.
Well, they had to be told to vote for him at the last second, and that's what basically doubled his support. I mean, he was polling at, I think, 25 to 30 points in South Carolina until, he got the James Clyburn endorsement and Obama and Buttigieg, the whole thing. And then he ended up with almost 50% of the vote. Russell, it's interesting that you mentioned the thing about, the media. I actually have an article that is coming out either tomorrow or Friday. I might do a little brief recording to go with it. But there was this segment on MSNBC, I believe it was this morning, because I just saw it online circulating, where they actually cited the poll that had Biden and Trump neck and neck in Florida, and they cited that Trump was actually beating Biden amongst Latinos in Florida. Yeah, right. And the spin on this was just, I mean, to call it Orwellian really does not do it justice. They were talking about how, first of all, they split the Hispanic vote between Cubans and non-Cubans. Mm-hmm. And they said, of course, Trump is running up the score with Cubans like 68 to 30. But the big story was that among non-Cubans, Biden has only 58% and Trump has 32, which, that's miserably underperforming. In 2016, Latinos voted for Hillary, non-Cubans voted for Hillary by like 72 points to 28, right? So
and overall, I think it was 24 points.
Yeah, but here's the kicker of this. Here's the kicker of this. Joe Scarborough offers as an explanation for this. He says, you can look this up. Like I said, I have a whole article coming out about this. He says, Bernie Sanders style socialism doesn't sell with all Latinos.
Yeah, I said that.
As if Bernie Sanders is the candidate, right? And so this is the evil genius of what they have set up here.
Sanders crushed Biden with Latinos. He crushed everybody with Latinos.
Yes, of course. But you talk about propaganda, and this is the evil genius of the way they've set this up. And this is why I think the electoral leverage strategy is a bit precarious when it comes to convincing these Democrats. Like, can we pressure the comfy Democrats, right? Because they're so under the thumb of these MSNBC types. The genius of what the Democrats have done here is they have lurched to the right and they have abandoned the left. Perfect example of that, Flint, right? They've made very, very explicit that they tend to go after suburban Republicans in Michigan, not the people of Flint, whose absence cost them the last election.
Even after the outcry, they felt no need to walk it back.
No, nothing.
They didn't even mention
They don't give a fuck. No.
Nothing.
No.
But here's the trap. So if they win, they will be able to say, well, look, we won the election by lurching to the right. We took these like affluent, suburban, conservatives from the GOP and put them into our side. That is a proof of concept that we can win without the left. Therefore, we have to duplicate this strategy every single time, right? So they're able to screw the left that way. Now, here's where it gets really diabolical. If they lose, they are going to say, they're going to blame the left, and not just in the traditional sense. Like, they always blame the Green Party, and they always blame the Bernie or Busters and the lefties who stay at home. They're having their cake and eating it too here, because if they lose, they're going to say it was because the Democratic Party couldn't separate themselves from the left enough, right? They're going to say Black Lives Matter couldn't, behave themselves, and they scared all the whiteys away who we were luring in. They scared everybody with Medicare for All and Green New Deal. We're going to ban hamburgers. We're going to take your private insurance, right? Oh, they scared everybody away with this talk of defunding, right? The cops, right? So they're having it both ways. If they win, they'll say we won because we tacked to the right. If they lose, they'll say we lost because we gave off the appearance that we were too under control of the left. Either way, screw the left.
I know. Heads I win, tails you lose. It's perfect.
Yeah, and that's the way, and that's the way they've set this up. And electorally, look, they won.
They won.
Lost. I mean,
they won.
It's
That's it. And a Republican will be in the White House, no matter what. And that's what we got. And they win either way. Their gig flow is fine. I want to talk about leverage. You and I agree with you, because you say that leverage is iffy, and the reason is because of the lack of information. There's a blockade. It's not only that they hear exactly what Morning Joe wants them to hear, but it's also that if we were really going to put the case out in front of them, that the reason they keep losing is because the left, and it would take Morning Consult and Emerson, the two main polls that talked about the people who were sticking to Bernie no matter what. And Hill Rising talked about a little bit, the stickiness of Bernie voters. And but the problem is that we can't get the word out. If the word could get out systematically, repeatedly, like they did with Russiagate, and they just got beat up, over and over and over. The reason you're losing is because the Bernie voters in swing states are not going to blink. Now, if you said 80% instead of 20% of the Bernie supporters in swing states are going to vote either directly for Trump out of spite, or they're going to vote Green, or they're just going to leave it blank. In Michigan, a lot of voters are going to stay home. In Flint, Michigan, a lot of voters are just going to stay home.
Sure.
And so if you could make the case,
or they'll do what a lot of people did last time and voted leaving the presidential
right, and voting down ballot. So if you make the case strongly in mainstream media or somewhere else that they hear it, then it works fine, and then they'll blink first. They'll realize the Bernie or Busters are resolute, and it will need a different name. It's not going to be Bernie or Busters. It'll be progressive or bust, or left, or I don't know what to call it, but because that was so catchy. But
no, they still won't back down.
But that block, if it's stuck together, if 80% of the left that are really on the left,
they're not going to care.
What we need to say is
all they care about is maintaining their power and wealth.
But you're talking about the DNC insiders. I'm talking about the comfy suburbanites. They fucking want to win. Yeah. They want to win so bad that Michael Moore, who's kind of a comfy Dem, says, you're going to lose to Trump, and we absolutely can't stand that. We were going to suck it up. So what we have to do is get the word, if we could, and I don't know if it's ever going to be possible.
Well, look, sorry, go ahead.
If we could get the word out to the comfy Dems, and they believed us, then Joe Biden wouldn't be a thing right now. All those moms who voted, all the wine track moms wouldn't have voted for Biden if we got our word out ahead of mainstream media.
Well, this is why I thought the episode that Michael Moore did was so important.
Yeah.
Because he is the kind of guy who can get that word out, right? Because, he's further left than the mainstream comfy Dems, but he also goes on MSNBC quite a bit, right? He's kind of got 1 foot in, 1 foot out of that world.
Right.
And, I emailed Michael Moore after that episode because I've exchanged a couple of personal emails with him. I'm not saying I'm his buddy or anything, but like I hosted his film on my website. The reason I got to do that is because I emailed him a write-up that I did on it, and he emailed me back, and we went back and forth a couple of times. So I thought, hey, maybe if I email him, it'll at least get flagged in his inbox as somebody who he's had a prior exchange with, and he might read the fucking thing. I don't know. So far, I haven't gotten an answer because what I said he should do. I said, look, this was a great episode, but it's now day 3 or 4? Biden has not renounced Rick Snyder. And if you're going to make good on your word, if this is not just rhetoric, then I think you should withdraw your support for the Biden ticket until he disowns Rick Snyder.
Wow. All hell would break loose.
All hell would break loose. If he did that, then all hell would break loose, and that would command the attention. It would at least make these Democrats look twice, right? They'd have the TV on. They'd look, right? It would catch their attention. It would give them a sense that this is for real. And I said, look, I know that's a lot to ask. I know you're trying to do what you feel is the right thing. You want Trump out, right? But we need courage in this moment. Somebody has to go to bat. At this point, it is a matter of, and you taught me this concept, Alan. I actually credit you with getting me to think about Bernie or Bust in this way, is that at this point, it is a matter of solidarity with the people of Flint. The people of Flint at this point see no point in replacing Trump if they're going to replace him with the guy who's cozying up to the governor who poisoned them. And so at this point, it's a question of, do you show solidarity with them and say, I'm going to join you in boycotting this ticket until this is made right? And I said, I tried to, soften the blow a little bit by saying,
called them scabs. You told me not to call them scabs.
I said, listen, you fucking scab. You better. No. But I said, look, if they're serious about winning, if they want to win, and hopefully they'll do the right thing, they'll withdraw the endorsement, at which point you can reaffirm your support, right? It's not something I would really do, but I'm just saying, leave that door open in case they say, like, listen, are we serious or not about this? This reminds me so much of when Michael Bloomberg entered the race.
Yeah.
Because when Bloomberg entered the race, that caught the eye of so many, even more mainstream or mainstream adjacent Democrats, where people were like, whoa, this is actually a line where, like, we have to really seriously ask ourselves, like, if Bloomberg is the nominee, do we boycott the ticket? Because this guy, in terms of everything, rhetoric, record, everything, is so close to Trump that there's really no point in replacing Donald Trump with Michael Bloomberg. And to the people of Flint, this is that line. This is worse than that line. You know what I mean? Yeah. You push people to a point where it becomes, a real question of, like, is this ticket worth voting for? And I think they pushed it to that point. And so that's why I just sent him I said, listen, we need somebody of your stature, right, to go to bat and draw a line in the sand. And if you can't draw the line here, then where?
Susan Sarandon also has that big voice. We need the people with the big voices.
Not like Michael Moore, though.
No, okay. No. They sure get on Susan Sarandon's case anytime she does anything.
They're going to write Susan Sarandon off because she didn't toe the line for Hillary.
Yeah.
Right, because she voted for Stein in 2016.
Some credibility.
Right, because they've already branded Sarandon this sort of spoiler, right? They didn't brand Michael Moore spoiler because he tried to get the vote out for Hillary 4 years ago.
Yeah, he's more reasonable. They call Susan Sarandon the same thing she was Bernie or bust. She was openly Bernie or bust.
That's what I mean. They'll just call her a Russian agitator.
Exactly.
But Michael Moore, they can't do that. And Michael Moore has a Twitter following of 6 million. I mean, Michael Moore is a huge name. you know. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that's what you need right now. I mean, if not now, when? Like where is the line if not here? Like this really is, because what they did here with embracing Rick Snyder is they forfeited any plausible deniability they may have about like whether they actually want to represent communities like Flint. Because it's always been this meme out there, the joke that, the Democrats, they come and they ask the black people for their votes every 4 years, and then they just, forget about them, and then 4 years later they come ask for their votes again.
Yep.
Well, when you do a move like this, you're not even asking for their votes anymore, right? So you're not even pretending that you're interested in representing them anymore. You're literally saying, hey, there's this group of affluent suburbanites who are really upset about Donald Trump's tweets. We're going to go for them.
Yeah.
Fuck you and your poison water. We're going to go for these people. And if you don't want to vote, fine. That's the message they're sending. And at some point, I think you do have to draw a line and say, look, this is now a matter of, are we expressing solidarity with the affluent suburbanites or the people of Flint?
I don't know what he would think he was accomplishing. That's the problem because with Bernie or Bust, we thought we would push the people in time to get Bernie. If Michael thought there was some way to get Bernie back, then he probably would take a stand. But we all know there's not any chance to get Bernie back. So what is he going to do? He might get discouraged and say, whatever, I'm not voting either. But I can't see him getting out and leading a charge if there's no reward.
Well, if the Democrats really want to win, and I'm not talking about the party leadership now, I'm talking about the voters.
Right.
If the voters who watch MSNBC really want to win, they're really desperate to win, and they see Michael Moore come on TV and say, I am withdrawing my support from the ticket until they renounce Rick Snyder. If anything could sort of just whack them into reality, that would be the thing. Because now they're saying, oh my God, Michael Moore is not voting for, but he's still, yes, a lot of the real diehard, like K-Hive blue MAGA people have a hard on for him, but he's still very well respected among a lot of mainstream Democrats. And if a guy like that defected, that might, it's no guarantee. I put it at a long shot even then. That's how far gone a lot of these people are. Yeah. 20% chance, though, I'd say a lot of them say, wait a minute, this is bad. If somebody like Michael Moore is dropping out, this is bad. Then they might pressure the Biden campaign to do it. At which point,
what would they do? Then they would renounce Rick Snyder. It wouldn't help the leftists, and it wouldn't get Bernie back. So
no,
even
the
then,
damage is already done.
What's going to do?
Look, going forward, just like when they started Justice Democrats, I thought it was going to be a real deal. Mm-hmm. I thought it was going to go somewhere. Yeah. I didn't think it was going to be fly by night. Same with Movement for a People's Party. Yep. I think that's going to be a significant force going forward. And I don't, part of the result of how limited the information these people get is they're going to be blindsided by it, because there are fucking millions upon millions of people who are dying to leave these two parties. Dying to. The majority of Americans say they want a third party.
They're dying.
They're dying, literally.
Yeah.
They don't understand how deep the hatred for these parties really goes out in the country in general. Can the Movement for a People's Party pull a Lincoln like Nick Brown is always saying, and within a matter of years just sweep the party out of power or do what they did in Mexico? I mean, maybe, when things reach a tipping point, very often things that you would have thought were impossible can happen very quickly. But what I will say is going to happen is it's going to make it impossible for Democrats to win elections without support from the left.
I just wonder.
They're going to have to go in that direction once you have another option that doesn't have, whether it's their fault or whether it's just years of media propaganda, the Green Party brand is just tainted. It's just tainted. Like, you're just not going to get that. It has to be a brand new party that's not carrying any baggage from the past.
What are they going to get to? As they go down the road, they're going to get to the point maybe where the Green Party is, and they still won't be able to break through because you have to get 50% of the electoral votes, or Congress picks the president.
Well,
and how are you going to do that with 3 candidates?
Well, look, I mean, I think in the short term, what they have to do is fuck things up for the Democrats. Now, what MPP can say for themselves, that the Green Party can, is that 400,000 people tuned in to their virtual sort of convention / rollout. I'm sure now the number is up over 1 million between all the replays and the shares and stuff like that. I don't think every Green Party convention combined has had 400,000 viewers, right? So they're starting with a huge leg up because they got star power, and they put in the work to get that star power. You know,
not only do they have star power, they don't have that baggage.
Well, they don't have
the Green Party already has associations. People have already made up their mind about what they think about it.
Yeah, there are a lot of bad blood with the Green Party.
If you get one of those stars who was in their rollout last week or week prior to run for president, that's a huge star. You get a huge star with a huge following to run for president, you fuck up the Democrats bad, to the point where, you might be looking at President Josh Hawley or Nikki Haley in 4 years, at which point, fuck it, let it ride.
Sure. You know, we're kind of assuming here that you can
10%.
We're still this conversation that moved into the movement for a People's Party and the Green Party, we're all still kind of assuming that we're going to solve it by voting.
Well, not
exclusively. Not exclusively.
I mean, it seems like if you got the people riled up and you ran over all the party, every politician said, no, we got to give you health care. Even the Republicans, would say if we had enough protests and strikes, they would bring them all to their knees, then put in the party. But I don't think you're going to ever get there through strategy. I was making fun of Vosh on YouTube for that, because he thinks that, I'm running out of time. I have a school account where I can go as long as I want, and I opened this up with the wrong account, so I don't know what's going to happen.
You upgraded it.
Yeah, I got that too.
I got the message that you upgraded it already.
Just said you upgraded it to unlimited minutes.
Oh, wow. Okay, so never mind. I just hit a button to make the thing get out of my face. Capitalism at its finest.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. I can't even remember.
Tech overlords for giving us another half hour.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that's either or, Alan.
Yeah.
It's both. It's both.
Well, you can use both at the same time.
Because ultimately you want legislation, don't you?
Yeah, and you have to have a government that's strong enough eventually. Because if you overthrow the government, if you completely overthrow the government, you need to have a government eventually that's strong enough to resist multinational, transnational corporations.
Right.
So you got to have
you need to have a political arm, but of course, you need to go out in the streets. When you don't go out in the streets, that's how you wind up with the Democratic Party as currently constituted. People haven't really been taking to the streets in the way that they need to since the 60s.
Yeah, and so if the movement for a People's Party is really going to do it, I don't see them all. I see them as too comfortable to pile into the streets. But if they did, and they insisted,
they've done some action. Nick invited me. I should have, Russell. I was going to hook you up with Nick. Actually, he needed a place to stay when he was going to go into the city. But at the time, you were still.
Dude, I had an empty room.
Yeah, but at the time you were still like, I think Warren is a smarter move. I didn't want to get you.
Yeah, but I would have put him up.
You would have fought it. You would have got no fight with him. You would have. I didn't know.
No, I wouldn't have.
I didn't know you had an extra room either, because I thought you had you were moving.
Yeah, when was it?
I don't know. It was like last summer sometime, but they were doing, Nick, he taped his hand to the bottom of the Capitol building, got arrested. They went to New York City. They did block some streets, did some shit. No, I mean, I think they are real deal people. But when we talk about like direct action, this becomes a question of leverage as well. Because the way the way you exert leverage over comfortable people is not necessarily to threaten them with a Trump reelection. Because I got to tell you, man, I know a lot of people who, just like there was a secret Trump voter, last time that was a working class voter, there would have been a secret white collar Trump voter if Bernie were the nominee. A lot of these Democrats, we hate Donald Trump.
You can call them the Donnie Deutsch voters.
Right, exactly. The Donnie Deutsch, exactly. The Donnie Deutsch caucus there would have gone in. But the way you really exert leverage over them is you stop society from functioning the way it would normally function in the form of protest. You block the streets. Now they can't get through the fucking Lincoln Tunnel to go to work, right? Or there's a strike where all of a sudden there's no Ubers or Lyfts to drive them where they need to go. So that's a way of exerting leverage. But I think, in the short term, the way a third party will get off the ground is it will just have to sabotage at least one election, maybe two, maybe three, for the Democrats until there is a switch. And is that very difficult? Yeah, it's difficult.
They won't do it, though. The Democrats won't give us a progressive, even if they sabotage them. They don't care if they lose.
Right, but I'm saying the voters might realize, hey, this party's never going to fucking win again, and this new party seems for real.
That's it.
And so we're going to switch over.
Basically, it's a nuclear option.
Right, and the key, too, is to mobilize people who have given up.
In order to save it.
Well, you also have to rebuild it using people who aren't there. Half the people who should, half of the voting age population doesn't vote. You have to do outreach in communities like Flint, who stay home. And you have to give them a reason to think that this candidate is going to do something for you.
Yeah.
The Democrats have obviously just overtly forfeited that this cycle.
Yeah.
But that's what it will take.
I mean, at moments like what we're in, and I've been saying on many of our podcasts, we're still in the nice part of the pandemic. When you're talking about this kind of the kind of social instability that we're going to see, I mean, this election is going to be accompanied by riots. It's going to be accompanied by violence. It's going to be accompanied by ongoing legal challenges and, quite possibly a constitutional crisis. At moments like that, a lot of things that are not normally possible are possible.
Yeah.
The Movement for a People's Party could not wind up a Green Party kind of a situation. Like if there was ever a historical moment where you could launch a party that might actually wipe out one of the major parties, it's now.
Yeah,
well, that's happening around the world now. I mean, this, what the sort of tumult that's going on is not unique to the United States. You had new parties in Greece, Chile, Mexico emerge.
That's Nick's argument. That's what he's saying, that we could do that here, and he might be right.
Yeah.
He might. If you had said it 20 years ago, I mean, I'd hand you a cup to drool into. But right now, maybe.
I mean, look, at this point, my argument would be whether you think it can happen or not is almost secondary, because the fact is it has to happen.
Yeah.
It has to happen. That's what Jimmy Dore said in his segment. This movement must win.
And
it's not likely to win. It's not likely to win. We're likely to, did you see the color of the sky over San Francisco? None of this is likely to work. This is all like we're trying to intercept an asteroid that's headed for Earth. But what choice do you have? What choice has the system given you? It hasn't given you any choice.
Russell's right that this is a time that may never come again. So if there's a way, like when 9/11 happened, the powers used that to exploit the people. The powers used that to remove freedoms. Yeah. So why not the left and the right is afraid of this, and the powers are afraid that the left is going to use this moment. They keep talking about it in conservative news. They keep saying the left is trying to use this moment and exploit it, and I'm like, good. I wish, because if we do, this time may never come again. This may be the time with the Black Lives Matter movement and the pandemic, and it's like a perfect storm. And Russell also was saying a second ago, this is the nice part, and I'm sure you're referring to the economic devastation
Yes.
that's coming.
Yes.
And you say you travel to New York to the lower side, and you look at how people are getting around. I thought that was interesting that you use that as like a barometer of how people are doing. And if you keep measuring and it keeps looking more and more desperate, something's got to give. And why not take over now and not wait for the next, like, Movement for a People's Party is going to take a while to get people on the ballot, but we could take over now. We don't have to wait weeks or months. We could take over tomorrow.
Well, we're trying to do that, Al, but remember, look, these are, God damn it, Alan, I was being so optimistic. Now you're going to tap into my unfortunate lengthy knowledge of contemporaneous revolutionary writings of the 60s that are out of print.
Cool.
Okay, so there's this guy, he was a columnist at the San Francisco Chronicle up until at least 10 years ago. He wrote an out-of-print book called The Making of a Counterculture that was really fascinating. I'm very interested in books written in that period that don't have hindsight. So you get a sense of what they were really thinking at the time this was all amounting to. And he made arguments that I've never seen anywhere else that turned out to be really prophetic. What he said about the revolutionary movements of the 60s was that that the new left, as they were calling them then, were underestimating the ability of capitalism to co-opt anything and sell it back to itself. And he used Playboy magazine actually as an example. And he was saying, well, look at how they've taken this sexual liberation movement and commodified it and associated it with bourgeois fantasies of wealth and power, where they've connected it to drinking the right scotch and wearing the right clothes and being on a jet, right? He said essentially the system is going to take all of the hippie aesthetics and all of the slogans and just eat it and sell it back. So is that entirely possible here? Yeah, something else that's instructive from the 60s, or perhaps even more relevant. Look, man, you have political freedom until you exercise it in America. And once you exercise it, those guys over at the CIA, the FBI, they are not the fucking Boy Scouts, okay? Like, these guys will be on you like white on rice, okay? Like, you're already
surprised the stream hasn't been interrupted.
Exactly. You're already seeing it with powers that Trump has that Nixon couldn't have even dreamed about.
Yeah.
A Department of Homeland Security with its own federales that you can send out onto the street to black bag people and throw them into the back of a van. Listen, you get a real people's, and also we don't have habeas corpus anymore. All you have to do is call someone a terrorist and you can throw their ass in jail with no trial, no charges, with no time limit. These are things that even the 60s radicals did not face. So if things get real, that is how they're going to respond. And not only if a Republican is president, that's how they'll respond if a Democrat is president.
Yeah, it's all in place already. The deep state is already. It doesn't need Trump. People are giving Trump way too much credit.
The MSNBC people will be cheering it on if a Democrat is president when it's happening.
Yeah.
But if you're talking about the oligarchs really perceive a threat to the system, you're going to have Kent State. You're going to have people getting shot in these protests. And now you have these terrifying new police powers that did not exist in the 60s that they're going to make full use of. They'll start grabbing people and calling them terrorists.
Do you think then that the left should start to bear arms? Do you think that we should pick up our AR-15s And
I am pretty sure I have said this on at least one of our podcasts. The only gun rights argument that I am sympathetic to is the argument that you might need these guns to fight the government.
Yeah.
That is the only argument that makes sense to me.
Me too.
Why you need a gun.
Yep.
Other than hunting, if you're actually going to eat what you hunt.
Yeah. Yeah, which I grew up doing. You know, I can
did you?
Yeah, I can butcher it and put it in the freezer too, and I have.
You are on my apocalypse team.
Yeah, I grew up in rural Oregon, and so there's this guy named Ammon Bundy in the news. He's a militia guy, and they had a standoff, you know, with the federal government.
Sure.
He's in favor of Black Lives Matter. He's in favor of defunding the police. He sees it correctly, you know, that the government is not to be trusted, but that, you know, and then my end game is different than his, because I think we do need a government eventually that we can trust, and he would just pull it all down. But he would say that we need to have arms for the same reason you just said, to keep the government from popping us into bags like they were doing in Portland, Oregon.
Right.
I grew up right next to Portland, Oregon. And so I feel all of the interesting perfect storm ingredients there, because they've got militia and they've got liberals and they've got progressives. Right. They've got people that are genuinely rebellious and genuinely want freedom on the far left and on the far right. And really there isn't that much separating them. If they ever got together, they could all gleefully go after the same assholes that you're saying, that you started this by saying that they won't give up their power easily. But with the United States fully armed and not just armed with weapons, but armed with the information they need to know how bad it really is. Like if they were reading Caitlin Johnstone every day, you know, if the United States citizenry knew the full extent of how evil the government is, plus they were armed, we could win tomorrow, even with everything you've just said.
Well, because you'd have a lot of the military would join you.
They would join the right people.
A lot of those guys are coming from that, either, you know, usually from a right perspective.
Right.
But you know, I have made the argument, listen, if the government really does go full Orwell, you're going to be glad you have those Duck Dynasty motherfuckers out there with the fucking AK-47s, because they're the ones who are going to be fighting. You know, the MSNBC guys, as long as you keep giving them sushi and handbags, they're going to be good with it.
Well, this is and this is, you know, to pull this back to the short term, the question is, between now and November, is really a question of how far are you willing to take this in order to demonstrate to the MSNBC types, to the, you know, comfortable Democratic voters, how far are you willing to take this to demonstrate that what they're calling a democracy, what they're calling a free society, right, what they're, you know, all of this stuff, we could either demonstrate that it's not as free and open as it portends to be, but I think even more powerful is the supposition that, look, what good is our democracy, right, if it allows a governor to poison a town's water and get away with it, right? Oh, you like your democracy because you learned about the Constitution when you took a college civics course, right? Or you know, the democracy has served you well because it's allowed you to carve out a nice little living for yourself and a house and a couple of cars and an in-ground pool, right? Whatever. Yeah. But what good is this democracy? What good is this Constitution? What good are our norms, right? That they're always fretting about the norms, you know, and every morning, you know, Mika Brzezinski, Joe Scarborough, you know, our norms would be great. What good are these norms if they allow situations like the situation in Flint and communities like it to just get worse and worse and worse? And the people who perpetrate this shit on these people intentionally, in Rick Snyder's case, walk free. And at a certain point, you know, I mean, it's a dark subject. This is not this is not a plan to make anything better in the short term. This is a plan to tell people, like, listen, you don't get to have your little pretend democracy as long as I'm drinking poison water. Yeah. You can have your little fucking fake democracy back when you change the goddamn pipes in my town so that I'm not drinking poison anymore. Until then, democracy, oligarchy, plutocracy, full-on dictatorship, right? For all the talk about how Trump is a Hitler, Mussolini. Doesn't matter. My water tastes the same. I'm going to die just as quick either way. And you have to be willing to demonstrate to these people. I don't care about your rose-tinted view of the world or rose-tinted view of this country. I don't care, because that's not reality. It's not reality for me. It's not reality for anyone I know. It's never going to be reality for us. And you're going to have to get a little taste, a little tiny taste, in the form of bad TV in your case, because you don't like the way Donald Trump talks, right? You're going to have to get a little taste of my world before I make your world any better. Alex? And that's really a leverage. If you think that'll work, I think that's the best argument for any kind of leverage strategy. Because at a certain point, you just have to say, listen, stop lecturing me about this. Stop telling me I have a responsibility to save the country. I don't have a responsibility to do fucking anything. I got poison in my body because of this bullshit.
If we really wanted to win without weapons and without voting...
Yes, I'm for winning without weapons, ideally.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's fine. There is a way to do it, and it's information. It's the narrative management.
He's a lover, not a fighter.
And that's good. I think that you'd get a lot more normie Dems on your side if you could come up with some plan that didn't involve AR-15s. So if you
strikes, we have people.
But not just that. I was going to say what Kate Johnstone says about the narrative management. If we could wrestle control in the internet is, it's, even though the algorithms are against us and the corporations own all of the interwebs, if we could figure out some way to win the info wars. I was going to mention Alex Jones. It is an info war. If we could win the info war, we wouldn't have to use rifles.
Right. Well, you have to do that. You have to keep working at it, and you have to target certain communities with messaging that will really appeal to them, really make sense to them. That's what Movement for a People's Party said they're going to do in 2021 and 2022. They're not going to seek nationwide ballot activists. They're going to seek out communities where they think they can win. Now, I don't know what those communities are. I think Flint is a hell of a place to start. I think Seattle, which has a vibrant, functional socialist party, Shama Sawant, councilman, she beat Amazon. Yeah. She beat the richest country in the world. Richest country. That's a Freudian.
Yeah, might as well be.
Right. Yeah, it is. Richest corporation in the world. Right. You have to start growing the pie. You have to start really, because that's our biggest obstacle. The biggest obstacle that Bernie had was not even so much the comfy Dems. That's what looks like the biggest obstacle, because they're the ones who intervened and screwed him at the last minute.
Yeah.
But if we had a voting public that voted in numbers 75, 80, 90%, as opposed to 40 to 50%, then Bernie would have walked away with it, because his issue set is overwhelmingly popular. So the biggest challenge is getting people to believe that the government can work for them.
Right. That's information.
And you have to do the work. It is hard. It is slow. It is not glamorous. Chuck Rocha said, the way Bernie won the Hispanic vote, he says, I didn't even use Bernie. I just got the campaign to give me some money and allow me to do Spanish-speaking town hall events. We went to these places who, they didn't think politics was for them, right? That's not for, and they had Spanish-speaking surrogates go and do the work, and they turned out a huge vote.
Money. And, it's about money. If you had enough money, you could do anything you wanted. You could get around MSNBC and WAPO and New York Times and CNN. If you had enough money, you could just buy the messaging you wanted. You could get the best people to package it and write the propaganda for you, and you could pump it out there, and you would win. You would win the information wars if you had enough money. All you need. You don't even. Chuck Rocha, he's a mercenary. He'll go wherever people pay him the most.
He's been trying to get in touch with Joe Biden. and they haven't
blew him
returned
off.
his calls.
Yeah.
You know, yeah.
He doesn't care. It doesn't have to be Bernie. And you can get people like that on your side if you have enough money to pay them, and then you'll win.
Yeah, but you know, you're not going to overwhelm the institution of capital by raising more capital.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no way to raise that amount of capital without essentially becoming what you're fighting against.
Yep.
Was it Nietzsche? Be careful in fighting monsters lest you become one.
That would be funny if somebody with that much money, like somebody with Bezos' amount of money, or like an alien invaded Bezos' body, like took over his body and suddenly used all of his resources to try to help workers around the world.
It's so funny you mention that because I just started like an overnight warehouse gig at UPS's UPS warehouse, literally a half mile from my house.
They're a little more humane than Amazon. Right?
Yeah, well, first of all, I was going to say it's my first week on the job, so if you're shipping anything important, go with FedEx for now. But UPS is a great company to work for. They're fully unionized workforce. After 6 months, whether you're part-time, full-time, you don't have to move up. You have to do full benefits, pension after 25 years, right? All that shit. It's more or less the same kind of business. At least as much of what UPS does is similar to what Amazon does now. You know, fulfillment of shipping orders, right? Amazon's got a bit bigger website, but absolutely. If this system were worth anything, why wouldn't Amazon be the best company in the world to work for? Right? Why wouldn't they? Right? Well, not only is Amazon not unionized, they actually hired spies to sabotage any unionizing efforts that their employees may undergo.
It's all about Wall Street. It's all about pleasing the stockholders. You know, I've mentioned in a few of our podcasts, I was talking to Allen about, I don't know how you missed that. That's come up in our podcast so much. I am the socialist day trader. So I catch a lot of this economic and financial news. And they've never said in all the time that I've been following financial reporting, they haven't said 2 words about conditions in an Amazon warehouse. All they talk about are economies of scale and how brilliant what they're doing with their cloud computing sector is and what potential for expansion there is for Amazon. And that's what Amazon cares about. Like, that's the world that these people all live in. The workers are garbage. You know, the workers are, that's not even something to think about. It's not even a consideration. If the Amazon workers started to unionize, these finance people would only talk about it in terms of how it's going to affect the bottom line. They would never be talking about it in human terms. And that's how Amazon and everyone who is in an executive position at Amazon thinks.
You know,
I'm gonna make, this is kind of crossing the streams, but on this, I'm gonna make a film recommendation that is probably the best film capturing this late stage capitalism moment of anything that's been made in the last few years. Sorry to bother you. If you haven't seen it, I would highly recommend it. It's on Hulu right now.
Say it again.
Okay, I have not seen it.
Sorry to bother you.
Oh, okay.
It's by a black filmmaker who clearly spent a lot of time watching Brazil and maybe some other Terry Gilliam stuff. It's definitely an influence. But it's you know, this guy has no money. He gets hired as a telemarketer. And gradually he moves up the scale as a telemarketer. And once you get up to like the mysterious 9th floor, what you're doing is selling human beings to this company that is offering to, you're going to have food for life, you're going to have clothes for life, you're going to have housing for life. They're advertising this to people, and you see everybody lives in kind of bunk bed dorms. And, you know, it turns out essentially they've recreated slavery. under a legal system. Yeah, you're getting fed for life. You're essentially a slave. I will not give away the big reveal, but it goes even further, which is where I'm making a Terry Gilliam comparison. It doesn't feel a need to stay grounded in strict reality to make its points. Definitely has a little bit in common with Orwell's Animal Farm. Great commentary on late-stage capitalism, and particularly what we're talking about. Like this whole Amazon idea, I mean, it's evil. You've got high rates of suicide, depression amongst these workers. I mean, can you even imagine working like that, where you're
crazy.
They're just
MPP had
peeing in a bottle
Chris Smalls on there. Yeah. MPP had Chris Smalls, who led the
right.
Led the walkout. So
people who made iPhones for Steve Jobs, they were jumping out of the windows. I forgot what they said they had to do to keep people from committing suicide.
Didn't they put like either lock the windows or netting or like something really dystopian?
Yeah, no, it sounds like sci-fi dystopia what they're doing to these workers. It's just horrific. You have to make your quota, and if you don't, they give you a warning. You've got till the end of the week to move enough useless crap around to keep your job. It's just it sounds like the most horrific working conditions you could imagine in a first world country.
They built a guillotine on his.
I mean, sure, working in the diamond mines is worse. I mean, sure.
They built a guillotine on his front step.
I know.
Yeah. Maybe that's the answer. We're talking about the wrong thing. Maybe, I'm saying this in a happy, funny way because Facebook didn't understand when they threatened to suspend my Facebook account. When I said, I wonder what would happen hypothetically, if you solve the problem by removing the billionaires or removing the billions from the billionaires. But, if people got fed up and they started to joke about it, would those CIA people come to my door if we did talk about that? Because in a revolution, ultimately you try to figure out who has the power, and it isn't that it's not very many people. And so we talk about solving this in a short amount of time. And the people that would lead such talks would have to be very careful. But, if it's that bad, if things are as bad as we all see they are, and you're saying then in those situations you could justify the use of weapons, or guillotines, and we keep laughing.
This is the thing. I mean, you try to. This was the point.
I mean, I'm a bit of an antiquarian. I go with the guillotine.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Oh, no, but I mean, this is the point. I mean, you try to do things in a constructive way so that society does not, degenerate to that point. And I think now the question of leverage becomes a question of, are you willing to let it get to that point, right? Trump gets reelected. Who knows what comes down the pike in that, but are you willing to push it to that point? Because to so many people, it's already at that point. Yeah. So many people are already at that point. So that to me is a big question.
Well, so many people.
But go ahead, Russell.
So many people who are not even necessarily ideological, who are coming out of the world of academia, have been warning for years that this level of economic inequality was going to lead to political and social instability.
Right. That's why.
And we're here now.
Bernie was the easy way. It was the easy way.
Right.
Fix it. It's the easy way. Anyway, I have to run because I got to put my kids to bed. Plus, I have a bracelet on my ankle that's going to detonate at 1:30 a.m. because I have to go to my warehouse shift. So if you guys want to keep talking, you can. I could just sign out and you can keep recording or whatever.
Well, let's do a good sign out. Let's do like end with a bang here. So everybody say something inspiring, and then we'll all just go right into the sunset.
Socialissimo si, capitalissimo no.
All right, what do you have, Keaton?
Oh man, well, it's hard to top that. I know Russell's been working on his Spanish with his.
That's my Rosetta Stone. Yeah, that's like the first lesson.
No, but I'm going to end where I start. Michael Moore needs to withdraw support for the ticket, force the issue. You got to force the issue. That's really what you have to do. You have to prove at a certain point that you're not willing to blink first. You know, I'm on the record as not wanting it to get to that point. You know that, Alan. I started out not even a Bernie or Buster, and then I started even when I was a Bernie or Buster, I wasn't that militant about it. I've tried very hard to be as reasonable as possible here regarding this election, and they just push it to a point where that just can't work. And so you got to force the issue. You got to look, we're not supporting this ticket until, you know, X is met. Now, we know that's not going to be met, but a guy like him, a guy in that position could turn some heads, and that's the first step. So that's what I would say.
My parting shot is that if we told all of the comfy Dems that we were never, we meaning, you know, a block as big as we can get of leftists, whether it's Movement for a People's Party or whatever, but that we all agreed that we were never going to vote for corporatists, whether the vote meant anything or not. We just absolutely would never do it. I think that would send a pretty good leverage message. So we, short of guillotines and protests and strikes and all that. That we just hold the line as a group, and we say, if you want to be in solidarity and not be a scab, you've got to say, I will never, ever, ever vote for a corporatist, period. And then I think that would be a good club. If you have a club handshake and a club motto, if you're in the club, then you agree never to grace a corporatist with your vote. And that's where I've been from the beginning.
Nope, you were, and you've been right. I have to say, you've been right. So yeah. All right. Well, is that all we got? All right.
It's been real. Peace out.
All right. Thank you, Alan.
Thank you, Russell.
Alan, so much.
Thank you, Keaton.
Pleasure.